As soon as I started hiring more people and hiring people that were better than me at certain things, that's when business started to grow. I might not make all the money on the job, but I'd rather take 5 jobs this month where I could take a percentage, for managing them and sustaining the clients, but let other people do what they do best. Get out of your comfort zone, go meet other people. I stopped spending a lot of money on gear a long time ago and invested in like personal development, invested in like marketing, things that I can do that bring in new business. And there's no shortage of videographers and photographers, right? But people that have skills and they're personal and they're prompt and they're courteous and they actually care about what they're doing, reliability is number one.
Welcome to another episode of the Creators On Air podcast. Today I have a special guest, Mr. Bernard Bonomo. He is a media entrepreneur here in Miami with over 20 years of experience producing multimedia for big brands and events. We'll chat about the growing business of making videos here in Paradise, where he just wrote a book on that with some valuable advice. So check out his links in the description of the video and let's get into it.
Thanks for having me here. My name, like you said, is Bernard Bonomo. I own a company called Bonomotion Video based in Brickell. I started this company about 20 years ago. It used to be called Bonomotion Productions. And I actually have like my initial like business card here. See, like Bonomotion, got the I, because your vision's only the beginning, So we started at Bonomotion back in Boca. And it wasn't, started with the idea of like, hey, how do I build a video business? It's basically, what it all comes down to, having some sort of spark or interest as a child and then following through with that as you get older. Because obviously as a kid, I was running around with camcorders, making videos all the time when you had class projects, and I'm 45 now. I just turned 45 this weekend. But as a kid, they came to you and said, okay, we have a class project. Do you want to do arts and crafts? Do you want to write an essay? And I'm like, no, I'm going to steal my mom's camcorder and go make a little video with the dogs. And I'm going to submit that, to play back in front of the classroom as my project when I was in middle school. So it wasn't, a sense of like, hey, this is a business. It was something that was fun and it was interesting. And then I was able to follow that through in high school, being part of the campus TV station, doing on-air broadcasts and the morning announcements. And then into college, get involved with the college TV station. So, I think once you find that little passion that you have, you start realizing, hey, I just enjoy doing this, and then figuring out how to get paid to do it. That comes later on.
That's awesome. And so, but when was the sort of the aha moment for you, as far as okay, this is what I want to do, and this is where I'm going to put all my effort into, and where I'm actually try to make money from?
Well, I think, it still came back down to, I was watching TV shows growing up. Like there were shows like Lifestyles of Rich and Famous, I saw Robin Leach on all these yachts and cars and mansions. Like, man, that's cool shit. How do you get to go travel around the world and do cool things like this? So, I also watched a show called Wild on E with Brooke Burke. Here's a beautiful girl running around in bathing suits doing the same thing. So I kind of started all this with the idea of kind of creating a TV show called Symbols of Success. And what's funny is I had it all written like in my little book about like my mission statement: to become the hottest TV producer in the industry, create a program that will be on TV screens across the nation. Bonomotion will be the next generation of production companies and reach the top in the business. So it started with like a big picture, right? Not like, hey, how can I go out and charge money for services? It was like, hey, I'm tired of watching TV. And this is also, there weren't 5,000 streaming channels or YouTube or anything. So we had cable, but I was, I kind of wrote a little quote out that said, why watch TV when you create it? So I started figuring out, hey, how do I get a better camera, after college? How do I start learning editing? And then start diving into that, spending like literally thousands of hours editing my own content to get to a point where I felt like, hey, I'm at a point where I could actually make a TV show, right? And then based on that, you kind of go all in on it, on your dream and your passion. But then after a certain amount of time, you obviously have other jobs in the meantime. I was a bus boy, I was a waiter, I worked at the Apple store, selling the phones. This is when the iPod first came out. But I got the discount, the Apple employee discount. So I was able to buy like a big Mac Pro, and at the time that thing was like $3,000. So it took me like a year basically to save up to buy that computer. But learning how to edit and getting the best tools, that kind of sets you up to realize, hey, I'm able to go out and start advertising, my services, because you need something that's going to kind of help fund what your dream passion is. And making a TV show about luxury and lifestyle before, thousands of YouTube channels that we see now and Instagram, that cost money to do. And I had to keep investing back into hiring models and hiring camera crews, and doing things that I needed to try and put together the best vision of what the show was. And that started by having a high goal and then working backwards and say, okay, well, now what are the pieces do I need to get there? At the same time, the older you get, the more responsibilities you have. And then you start having to spend more time doing the service part of business because all your bills and expenses go up. And then when you get married and you have kids, your passion projects start going down here because you have a lot more overhead. So that's something I'm happy to talk about with anyone who's young, who's 20 years old, get started in this thing. You don't really have a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of time on your hands, and that gives you the freedom of being as creative as possible. And I miss that.
So let me ask you this, since you brought it up, what would you say to a 20-something-year-old who's starting their, and they want to grow as a videographer, as a filmmaker, as a, even go ahead and create their own agency as you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel also there's different paths too. I feel now there's the YouTube career, there's
of course
influencer, there's the actually no kidding agency. So what would you recommend?
I mean, I think the cool thing is that like the barriers to entry are zero, whereas like I'm sure when you were, your path's a little different than mine, but still buying cameras, 15, 20 years ago, it cost a lot of money. I mean, to get a decent camera, you're spending $5,000-$6,000. The computer was another $5,000. So to get in the game, just to even be able to make videos, you had to spend a lot of time and money. The software wasn't that easy to learn. And the biggest problem that I had was that there was nowhere to put it. So I look back on things and say, shit, if I did this like a few years later, right, when YouTube and social media and all these things were coming out, there's no question that the content I was making was created for viral, right? Like here's DVDs of like little segments from Symbols of Success, like Welcome to Miami, Versace Mansion pool parties, Bang Music Festival, Daft Punk performance. These are things where I was the only guy there with the big camera running around, and they thought I was like the news because, and everyone wasn't running around with their phones every time the DJ came out. Everyone's there just enjoying it. I was in my early 20s and I was going, shit, I'm enjoying this also, but how do I get access? How do I get backstage? So I got my buddy Jersey Joey. He grabbed the mic. He had a great personality, ran up to people, hey, what's your symbol of success? So we have like all this content running up to people with Lamborghinis on South Beach, asking them about success 20 years before you start seeing it, really blowing up on the internet, right? So the thing is, like what I was doing then, and I got, DVDs and DVDs because we didn't have a place to broadcast this. The web videos were still very small and pixelated. We had to use like Flash Player to stream it. So people weren't watching on their phones. So the thing is like no one told me to go out and do all this, right? I just went out and created all this content myself because I knew this is what I like doing and this is entertaining. It's entertaining to me, and I think it'll be entertaining to other people. So my advice to someone else in their 20s or teens, whatever, is number one, don't just call me and say, hey, I just graduated college. I'm looking for a job, because we get a dozen of those calls a week. And number two, don't put on like your email, hi, my name is Jim. I'm a filmmaker. Here's what I want to do. Because this is what they're teaching you in college. Hey, you're at film school, so now you're a filmmaker. But making like a class project video, right, with your group of, your peers, and make it one student film and having a role in that does not mean you're going to have a career now, especially in Miami or New York or LA, as a filmmaker. Because the real people that are doing that, they've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. They built the relationships and they've done the groundwork needed. Because I'm still here, 20 years later, sending proposals, having calls, editing videos, editing pictures, when my dream written in the book was to make this TV show. And it doesn't mean like it's not happened. It's just I've been getting myself to the place where this then becomes the easiest thing for me to do, because I have the budget breakdowns. I know how to manage a crew of 50 people. You know, I know how to plan a production in different countries. And having done this, you know, for 20 years for clients gives you the experience needed to then kind of do your passion projects. So go out there. There's no excuse. You have a phone in your pocket. You could create videos. If someone came to me today and said, hey, Bernard, listen, I'm not even in college right now, but check out my Instagram channel. Here's all the stuff that I'm making with my friends. It's creative. It's shot well. It's edited cool. You know, it's that creativity and that skill set that you learn by doing. So no one's going to hire you because you did that student film. But if you could say, go to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, wherever it is, people could see what you're able to create, you know, because you could create it now with anything. There's nothing stopping people, especially with drones and all that stuff, you know. But that's, you know, that's kind of the truth about it. And the other thing is I plan on bringing a lot of the stuff back, because when I go through some of these tapes, you know, and I have mini DV tapes, which is cool because everything now is digital, right? Yeah. So we have terabytes and terabytes of hard drives, you know, just on my desk, just like this week alone. These are like the portable ones, you know, 2 terabytes here, these are all different projects, but it's hard to kind of pick this up and be like, oh yeah, I remember filming that. You know, whereas I have like boxes of tapes, small little mini DV tapes, and on each line is like a different event. It's a different, different, you know, shoot that I did. So I'm able to kind of pick up that tape, like, oh, shit, here was that cool yacht party that we filmed. You know, we were the only people there. Here's the Ultra Music Fest year 1. We were the only guys running around the crowd filming it. Like, so I'm able to kind of pull that tape, put it in the, you know, player and capture that again. And so it's just a matter of time before I start kind of releasing this on TikTok and all these other things, because it is fun content, and it was done like when a lot of the popular people now, like when they were born, you know, we were doing it, you know, and I'm glad they became successful, and I don't hate anyone for that, because I think it's amazing. It just kind of proved that I was right. You know what I mean? I knew there was like an appetite for like this reality style content where you're just kind of like stopping people on the street, talking to them. And we did this for years. So if you can make a living doing that, I suggest that, because corporate videos and commercial work, it's rewarding. You can make a lot of money doing it, but it comes with a different level of stress, and your creativity and the fun you have managing big projects. It's a lot different than just doing what excites you.
And so let me ask you, you mentioned film school. What is not being taught right now in film school from your perspective?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, I went to film school, you know, I went to NYU. I mean, I studied film. I read a lot of books about it. It's a lot of theory about composition and, you know, storytelling. And I think those are all important things to know, because at the end of the day, if you could tell a story, regardless of the medium, you know, where it plays, that's a heart of like our creative industry. But I think, you know, all these schools, and I don't know for sure, because I, you know, like I said, I don't spend a lot of times back on the university campuses. All I could see is what it comes at me in terms of, hey, I just graduated, and then I'll answer the phone. Yeah, okay, cool. The first question they say, are you hiring? What am I hiring for? You know, like a chef, a housekeeper. I don't know, like what exactly do you do? You can't just call someone and say, are you hiring? Right? Because most production companies, and we're number 1 in Google for 100 keywords, right? And that's not by accident. That's years of work. But even for Bonomotion, we don't have a dozen full-time employees, you know, and most production companies I know, other producers that are colleagues of mine, they hire a lot of freelancers. When they have a certain job, that's when you hire people. So if you just expect to get out of college and say, hey, I want a starting salary and work full-time, I'm not sure what I do anymore or what I could add value, you're not going to find that job. So I think the schools are doing a disservice by saying, great, you spent all this money getting your education. You now have your student film. Okay, now go out in the real world and apply for jobs. Because I don't know that many companies that are hiring salaried student filmmakers. You know, I maybe it's a little island somewhere, you know what I mean? Like in Narnia or something that exists. But
LA.
The real world is if you have a skill set And if I was the professor, and I did teach at this Miami Media School for 2 years, so I was able to kind of give a little feedback to the students there. And I said, hey, learn editing, learn what's trending. Take your phone, go out and start shooting things when you're on vacations. Make little recaps. Because if you came to me and said, hey, Bernie, listen, here's one of my colleges had a big party last week, and I filmed it with my, you have your phone, but now everyone has a Sony, like the barrier of entry is very little. You can get a nice DSLR, a pocket camera, even an Osmo for $400. And I shoot a ton of content on that thing that it's insane. So grab a little camera, shoot something that's a real actual event or an interview with someone, put it together in a way that I could look at it, or another company says, yeah, actually, you know what? This is kind of what we deliver to clients on a smaller level. But if you're able to kind of just do that and take the initiative and not have a professor tell you, hey, here's your assignment, you need to go out and shoot an event and edit this way, that makes a difference. Because the student film stuff, it's great, but it's like a creative expression for 10 minutes. And I'm not going to sit there and have the time to watch that. Or can I process how that's relevant, to the kind of projects that we do on a day-to-day basis?
Here in South Florida, I think not only we have our own cultures, own type of business, there's a lot of real estate, there's a lot of corporate work out there and all kinds of stuff. You started in the boating industry, yachts. Mm-hmm. I've seen some of the videos that you've done, they're really impressive stuff. Part of your success, and correct me if I'm wrong here, part of your success here is that you really took a different angle than most other filmmakers, video producers, videographers in the area that sort of focus on real estate or other corporate stuff.
What's funny about that is like, granted, I grew up in South Florida, right? I was born in Hollywood, lived in Boca through high school, went to college, Orlando, then New York. But then when I came back down to Boca and started Bino Vision, I was coming down to Miami all the time, right? For events and parties and mansion things. And, that was where I was like, man, this is a great place. Let me get a camera and film all this stuff and make little segments, because I was the only guy at these crazy parties. But I also got access to the cars, and I saw some mansions being built. I was filming those. But then when I moved to Miami, like in 2005, I think it was like right when like the first residential building was here. It's called The Loft downtown. Now it's a little 19-story building surrounded by, skyscrapers. But it was the first residential building, and I had the view of all like the arena and the cruise ships. But Biscayne Boulevard was just empty, really. Like they started expanding it. They started building, the Marina Blue and all the towers. And I got to see all this development happening. And the funny thing is, a lot of like the real successful, like luxury real estate companies that are out there now, and they do amazing work. A lot of these guys were hired by me years ago because I saw them have a drone and they were doing it like for a hobby. And I was like, oh, you're a cool photographer, but can you go do some drone work for this project? Here and there. And then they started helping me with like little projects here and there. And then a lot of photographers started transitioning into, oh, well, now my DSLR, I click here and now it does video. Let me start doing videos. And then I got buy a gimbal, whereas I was doing real estate videos a while ago where we had to hire a whole 20-foot jib, a crane, with weights to get a little shot going up and down. We had a whole truck with a crane so we could get that shot, So when I saw drones come out, and I saw a lot of photographers getting into drones, like as a hobby, with Phantom One, a lot of times, I would hire them because like, that's one of the things about owning a business is really, finding out what you're good at, but then hiring other people to support you. And I think a lot of people have the mentality of, hey, I want to be in the video business or photography business. I have to do everything. Do the sales, do the editing, take the pictures. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And then they stay at a certain level. As soon as I started hiring more people and hiring people that were better than me at certain things, that's when business started to grow, right? And you got to just be comfortable with the fact that, yeah, I might not make all the money on the job, but I'd rather take 5 jobs this month where I could take a percentage, for managing them and sustaining the clients, but let other people do what they do best. So when I started seeing the real estate boom, and obviously, like I created a website called video.miami. This was like a stock footage library a decade ago. because we had all this content from other shoots that we were doing. So if we hire someone to go do a drone shoot, go shoot that building, they come back with 30 minutes of footage, because at the time you'd have to click record on the GoPro
And it was
fly it, and then it would fly for 10 minutes and then land. And you're like, oh, let me see what I got there. You weren't starting and stopping anything. I would look at those clips and be like, oh, here's 8 seconds that I need for the video, but now I have 20 minutes or 10 minutes of cool stuff. Let me start figuring out how to cut that down into stock footage. So I have a library that has like 2,500 clips as Miami was being built, Brickell City Center.
Nice.
It was, and now my view now, all I see are more cranes. So Miami is a great place for this development. But what I also saw happen was that I was charging like maybe $2,500 to do a video for real estate, right? And this was at a time where not many realtors were doing this. So it was a kind of a larger investment for them. And, it's just because it took a lot of time to put it together the right way. We had to, we had a steady cam operator, we had to use the jib. Like it was a lot of people involved. But then I started seeing, as the drones got better and the gimbals cheaper, people offering videos for a few $100s. We'll film your apartment, we'll film your house. And I just saw the pricing going. And I was like, look, rather than try and compete with this market that already has a couple good players, and I commend the work they do, because it's, it takes a certain skill set and quality level to sell a $10 million house, right? Because that kind of buyer is not he's going to know in 2 seconds if he watches a video like, oh, this is shit, versus something that's done the right way. So rather than compete with them, I looked at the boating industry, which is something that I'm also passionate about. And I was like, hey, I see a lot of boat pictures on these listing sites that are just done by the broker. They're walking by the dock, they're taking some pictures on the camera or their phone. It's a little angles off or it's dark. I'm like, why can't we just figure out a way to offer services affordably to the boating industry? Nice. So that's where like marine video production was born in about 2017. So we've been doing that for 8 years. It developed into Boatopia. We filmed hundreds of boats, super yachts around the world. And then the one thing is that as there's buildings going up with hundreds of units, there's not that many new big boats being built. That's the realization. So if you go to the marina in Miami Beach, you go, oh shit, there's all these boats. We filmed a lot of them already, and there's not a lot of new ones. So luckily, it's a passion. It's a cool side business. But at the same token, I still need Bonomotion to be growing and running, because that's kind of the bread and butter. There's conferences, events, interviews, commercials. There's always kind of a need for that. Whereas the boats that are the big ones, it's a lot more limited inventory. And once they have a nice shoot done, a lot of times they hold on to that content until it sells or it changes ownership. But it is probably one of the coolest things to say, hey, I spent last week in the Bahamas on a $50 million yacht. I got paid to be there and ate from the chef, got to ride the jet skis, create the content, and put in perspective that some of these boats cost $100,000, $200,000 a week to rent, if not more. So to get paid to go do that, sleep on board the yacht, experience all the toys and the kind of the luxury and the lifestyle. Granted, we're working our ass off the entire time, but it's still, I got to pinch myself once in a while, because you wake up and you're like, man, look where I'm at today. This is my office. So, but just so anyone watching, that doesn't happen overnight. I went to boat shows for years and printed out like little USB sticks, that had like pictures and demo videos, and walked to booths and said, hey, listen, in case you need photos done, and now I see a lot of people at the boat shows with cameras, but I did that for years, running around with a camera, doing interviews, creating content for these brands for free, just to say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I can do for you. And it didn't happen overnight, but eventually someone's like, oh, wow, we actually have a new boat that's being made. Can you take pictures? And then you build a reputation and you deliver quality. But nothing comes easy. You don't just wake up and say, I want to go shoot yachts too. That sounds like fun. Especially flying a drone from a moving boat. That's a whole nother skill set. And there's only a handful of people that I know that I trust to do that. Because you take off and say, okay, return home. That boat, it's miles away now. That drone starts trying to think where it's going. And then you have the sensors, so it's definitely a skill set And I take my hat off to any drone pilot that tries to do this and does it successfully. And then FPV is a whole nother world, like because A, it's not only risky to lose the drone, but more importantly, I'm not going to put someone on a boat with my client and say, yeah, he told me he flies drones. And then next thing you know, boom, a drone crashes into a $10 million boat. That's a lot bigger issue than replacing a Mavic, So that's why it's a harder business to kind of scale it in terms of like, hey, let's just shoot boats 20 hours a day, because it is a specialized skill, to do it the right way.
No, absolutely. And believe me, I've had some scares and some successes as well with flying off of boats. But
and trying to land them. Look, taking off and flying is one thing. Trying to bring the drone back manually as the boat's rocking in high seas with the wind and then catching it. I mean, if you like your fingers, I don't recommend this, because you're going to see a lot of guys walking around with like this and say, hey, I'm a drone pilot. I know you try and do boats, right? So it's risky.
No, I'll put some B-roll of situations.
Oh, I got a ton of footage. I got a ton of footage for you behind the scenes, the finished product.
All right, yeah, we'll put some of that. We'll put some of that as we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This. Where do you see now in this? Not just for you as a bigger agency that does video for larger clients, but also for the newer up and coming content creators, especially I'm gonna throw in one with artificial intelligence coming into the space.
I mean, they just had this Adobe Max conference here in Miami Beach this week. Like all the great people from Adobe were here. And they kind of started the whole presentation and keynote talking about how AI and all these tools, they're not there to kind of replace people. They're there to kind of offer more, allow you to be more creative and do less of the tedious process, like masking out pictures and sky replacements and all that stuff. Like they're all kind of tools. But I can say that there are a lot of downfalls in having a business where you are kind of reliant on people at almost every step. I have editors that have deadlines, and all of a sudden, hey, Bernie, look, I hurt my hand. I can't finish the project. Clients are asking for it. So like you're dealing with a lot of variables when you're trying to run an agency versus just kind of do it yourself, right? And the more kind of things that I can have done by AI or computers, I'm going to invest in that, because they're not going to give me an excuse of why they're late or they can't make it to the thing. There's traffic. You know what I mean? They're gonna do what they're prompted to do, and a lot of these tasks are repetitive, right? If you're editing something, selecting clips, matching it, syncing it to the audio. If I could click a button and boom, all the angles are synced and the sound is there, great. That used to take me a whole day to take multiple cameras, and sync it all together. So I think all these tools, they're helpful, but it still comes down to thinking about like, what problems are you solving, right? If you're expecting to make a living doing this, and I mean, making a living, it means different for a lot of people. But the fact is, if you're living in South Florida or a major market, the cost of living, the cost of expenses have gotten so high that it's almost like impossible to kind of do this as a hobby anymore, right? Unless you have like a full-time job, and there's a couple books I read. This guy, Del Toro McNeil, he talked about having like, a bridge, where you have like your dream job and your career, and you got to find something that kind of bridges it together. So you're still doing your job, you're still paying your bills, but slowly you're kind of figuring out in your spare time, what do I really like doing, right? And start offering your services to other people so you can start building up that portfolio before you kind of dive all the way in, right? But I think if you're
the name of that book? Sorry, what's the name of that book?
He's someone we interviewed. Actually, I made a documentary movie called The Young Entrepreneur Society, where we interviewed, like this was 2000. What was this? I mean, this was a minute ago. It's called the Yes Movie. We got Donald Trump on there. You know what I'm saying? We got punk ass from Tap Out. There's Bill Clinton there. This guy. So, we went around and kind of interviewed 40 of these like successful entrepreneurs, and kind of learned all their stories. But the content from here, it still inspires me today. Because really, like the stories that these people had, and now the young entrepreneurs are not so young anymore. I thought I was a young entrepreneur, and then I was like, shit, I'm almost 50 years old. I don't think I could call myself that much longer. But at the end of the day, I think if you're if you have creativity and you have time, okay, even if you don't have time, you could have a 9-to-5 job. You still have a lot of time in that day. You can still go to the gym. You can still have time with your girlfriend, your friends. And then at the evenings, that's when I spent the most time learning editing and stuff. I mean, I used to go, lock myself in the studio for hours, wake up, walk outside. It's night, then it's daytime. You kind of lose sense of time. But that's what you have to do to kind of hone your craft, and it goes back to if you want to make a living doing it, right, or just even get paid, you have to solve someone's problem. You have to be able to do something that you're going to do it at a better level, all right, and you're going to get it done easier than someone just saying, okay, cool, I can do this myself. Because I think that's the perception a lot of people have now, in the sense of, oh, I need a video. Okay, cool. I got my camera. I'm going to shoot a video. And the truth is the camera here, the power here is 1,000 times better than anything I was ever using when I got started. The 16 Pro, 17 Plus. I mean, I can't even keep up with it anymore. But I think at the end of the day, content creation, there's always going to be a need for it, right? The level at which you do it is, kind of varies. But if you're able to kind of go to an event, shoot pictures and video with your phone, edit a quick little recap and post that, like that's something that we pay people to do, because the filming that we're doing with the whole crew takes time to edit. We have to then, sync the sound and the music, the graphics. The client will get that a week later. But people want stuff instant now, and so if you're young, don't go out. And another point I just want to say is this creative industry production, it's one of the only ones that I've seen that can just completely suck every dollar you have, right? Because there's no shortage of gadgets, and you're a good, you're a good testament if you probably put your hands on 50 different gadgets and drones, and they just announced a new drone. So don't get caught up by watching a YouTube video and be like, oh, I just bought the Mavic 3, but now there's the 4 Plus, and then there's they're all just tools, right? I stopped spending a lot of money on gear a long time ago and invested in personal development, invested in marketing, SEO, things that I can do that can help bring in new business. Because at the end of the day, you could be sitting on $1 million of equipment, right? But unless you have people knocking on the door to rent or use it, it's tough.
Just sitting there.
So don't get sucked into buying all the new stuff. Buy what you need to do your job, but don't think that there's a new A7 S3 Plus dot. It doesn't make a difference. The Sony A7 is still a good camera. I have a GH4 and a GH3 that I probably made $500,000 of business from that little camera. It's not the camera; it's the way that it's the way that it's purposed into something that a client will pay money for. Because there's not many companies that come to me and the first question is, oh, okay, yeah, we have an event or we have a commercial. Are you using this camera with this lens at this frame rate at this ISO? We have to educate them on the difference between DSLR, cinema, and pro level gear. So don't get caught up in that. Save your money, because it's a lot harder to make the money these days. And I feel like it's true in a lot of places within this industry, because it is getting highly competitive. We're competing against anyone who just wakes up and says, hey, now I'm going to make a business card or an Instagram say, I'm a production company now. Yeah. So I don't look at that as competition. I think they should come to agencies and producers like me and say, hey, how can I help be of value? Because getting the jobs at the end of the day is still the hardest part of this business, right? Getting clients to pay you a good amount of money for your time and effort, it's still the hardest thing. Shooting and editing the video, that I think I could throw a rock and find 50 people that know how to do it, at least to some level.
Yep.
So, don't get discouraged. I mean, read books. I don't think people do that much more anymore. Like, this is a book, E-Myth Mastery, and it's not just reading. There's notes, like you got to learn from other people, because we're not the first ones to do this.
Yep.
And find people you could partner with and work with. Like I just recently started teaming up with the guys from Media Monsters. They have an amazing studio, right by the Design District. I'm actually closing down this office here so I can move in with them, because we have the facility there. right? They have the facility, they have the gear, they have everything needed for a turnkey setup. So instead of me coming and finding studios to rent all the time, like, let me bring clients there, let them see what's possible, right? Because they have the same vision, they have the same goals as I do. And rather than say, well, now I need to go out and build my own studio because they have one, and I need to go buy an Ari Alexa because they have that camera. Like, I feel like there's too much of that, of like being people like a little spiteful, like, oh, well, I could do that. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't want to build a studio. I had a studio before in Boca. You know what I mean? I did all that already. I want to align with people that have the same goal. And how can we together offer stuff to clients that are going to elevate their brands? Because at the end of the day, it's not about us. If you're in the service business, you're serving other people, right? Until you get to a point where you go, hey, I made this movie, boom, I sold it for $10 million. Now I'm cruising. You're still in the service business, right? And I think anyone who's getting into production, who's thinking they're going to make a lot of money, they need to be realistic about it, because it's not easy, right? Unless you own some sort of property.
No, I hear.
Or do OnlyFans. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, that's another business model. You can.
Hey, listen. I mean, I don't hate on anyone. I think this whole game has changed. Content creation means a whole other thing. When I tell people I'm a video production guy, the first thing they think is something dirty, And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I got little kids around me. I'm like, no, I do. I just filmed a conference about hazardous material. That's what we're doing. It's not.
We're in Miami, unfortunately.
I know. We're in Miami. This is a growing city. More people are coming here by the hour, right? And I think there's a lot of opportunity. You got to stay in your lane, become a specialist at one thing, right? Because in the real production business, DPs, lighting guys, directors, these movies, you see the credits. There's hundreds of people. It's not one person. And those people that are successful move from movie to movie because they're experts at that one thing, right? And nowadays, you have to kind of learn everything about the business. But once you kind of have an idea of what everything is, how it all works, find one thing that you really excel at. Because that's something that people will spend extra money for someone specialized.
That's that right there is a really valuable tip. And so definitely a good way to close this out. And so, no, Bernard, thank you. This has been very insightful. I will tell you that for somebody who's also a fan of what you've done with your business and, as an entrepreneur, this has been very valuable. I think it'll be very valuable for other folks, not just in Miami, but outside, folks that are trying to grow their business with video. And so appreciate you joining me today. Hopefully you will have another session at another time. And so
I think what you're doing is great. I think, another thing is we do like these meetup groups. I haven't seen a lot of people doing those. We put together a creative content creator meetup group that we try and do, either here at the office or at the studio. And it's just great to see people come out. We've had bad luck where it's been like rainy, lousy weather the one day of the meetup, but I still had guys that are like, hey, I drove 2 hours to come out here because it's that important to get off the phone and be like, oh, look, I'm watching other people's stuff. I'm liking what they do, but to spend that extra time, get out of your comfort zone, go meet other people. And the reality is, like, from that meetup, we had a job like the week later. You know who I called? I called a couple of those guys. Hey, look, we just met. You came out. Can you do a camera operation for this event? Boom. Now they're kind of in the circle. So it's not just a way for us to kind of network and meet people. It's also a way to kind of vet and see, hey, can this person, be a solid member of the team? They have the right personality and they're polite and professional. So we want to do more of those things, because I think watching videos like this is the first step, but actually going out and getting involved however you can and offering yourself. Hey, I want to be a PA on your next shoot. Don't pay me. I want to come out and learn. Because I did work for 10 years before I got paid. I mean, people don't realize that. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't just asking someone, hey, look, I'll edit this video. Here's my rate. You just do it because that's what it takes, at least in my opinion, to get good at something, and make yourself stand out, because there's 100 people I could hire to go take a picture of something, right? Like that's there's no shortage of videographers and photographers, right? But people that have skills, and they're personal and they're prompt and they're courteous, and they actually care about what they're doing. That
and being
matters.
reliable, I can tell you that.
Reliability is number one.
It's huge. I hate to say it. Even here in Miami, it's hard to find reliable people. So
the reliability is huge. A lot of companies come here from outside the world, around the world, and they're unsure of who to hire and trust. And that's why you have to instill with them that, hey, you hire us, we're guaranteeing that we're going to show up. We're going to guarantee that you're going to get that final product. Because when you think about it, I'm sorry to go over time here, but we sell something that you can't really hold, right? If you go into a watch store, you say, hey, I want that watch. Here's the money. Sure. Give me the watch. Boom. I can resell it. I got tangible asset. We're telling someone, hey, pay us $20,000 for this video, right? You're going to see it after it's filmed, but all the way up until you give us that deposit and that final video, you're just betting that this company is going to deliver what they promised on, right? And when you think about it like that way, that does take some balls. It takes a lot of guts for a company and business to say, okay, yeah, we want to invest in this, but we're not going to actually get anything until the day of the event or the day of the shoot, right? And a lot of times they invest in the shoot, they rent the space, the guy shows up, he doesn't have the right gear, they show up late, the studio is closed. There's like all these different things that could go wrong, and our job is to kind of alleviate that stress for people. And just so you know, anyone listening to this, I have a new book coming out called Producing in Paradise. Okay. It's a whole guide filled with valuable resources and tips and strategies. And it's basically a guide to help making any kind of production in South Florida a breeze, right? So anyone watching this, they'll get access to this, as well as another guide that I wrote. So trying to put it out there.
No, that's great. Actually, I wasn't aware, so definitely I'll put a link down.
Put a link there
for those watching on YouTube, and also for if you're listening to us on podcast, Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Music. On the description of the podcast, you'll have a link there.
Yeah, there'll be a link there to download the book.
Thank you very much. This has been super valuable. I think that a lot of people are gonna get value from this. And so with that, I'll close out here. And for you guys that have been listening to and watching this, thank you. If you've not subscribed to the channel or to the podcast, I encourage you to subscribe. This is the type of content that we're putting out with this type of guest. Here in South Florida is going to be the focus of that creative community here in South Florida and Miami. But hopefully at some point, maybe expand out. And so if that's something that you're interested in, hit like, subscribe here. And with that, thank you, Bernard, and we'll see you on the next one.